Hey everyone, my name is Yarrow and you're listening to the Daydream Rules podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. You might hear my little dogs in the background. I'm recording this on November 5th. It's Thursday evening in Scotland and we're still waiting for the final results of the election in the US. There's a lot of feelings and I don't want to go too deeply into them because I don't think that I have anything important to say at this point, but I thought while we're waiting I was gonna send an episode your way, and the one I chose, I have a few really beautiful episodes recorded already, and so the one I chose for today is with Mimi Young, and we talked about so many beautiful things. I really love Mimi's approach, her integrity and wisdom and experience, and so I hope that it will bring some joy and comfort and maybe something to lean into as you listen. We talked about connecting to spirit, but also about what it means to move through this year with grounding and integrity, and what solitude means to us, how we nurture ancestral connections, and what it might look like to heal the witch wound. So enjoy. Just a few announcements from me. In case you haven't heard yet, I'm extending the Dream program. So Dream was initially just a 6-week writing program where every Friday I'm emailing you a few journaling prompts to work with, and then on Saturday we're meeting for a 45-minute live session on Zoom to look at those. And that's been such a joy and comfort and anchor that I'm offering those Saturday sessions all throughout winter to all patrons. So you can pledge at any level you like, and then you can drop into the Saturday sessions and you can either work with the journaling prompts that I'm offering, you can do some other writing, or you can do another kind of creative project like knitting or watercolor painting or playing with pottery, like absolutely anything you like. We'll do a little sweet check-in in the beginning, and then we'll light candles and drink tea and just quietly work together and then check in again at the end. And those sessions have just been so beautiful and given me so much accountability to stay in an active process of making and creating and being together and, seeing other faces and talking about how things are feeling in a really simple way. I don't want to offer another big course or something that kind of includes a lot of content or stuff to learn. I think that's not what I need right now. I just need togetherness and space to create. So please consider joining us if you like. Otherwise, I am also kind of getting ready to hibernate. It's getting really dark here in Scotland, and I'm kind of alternating between feeling like this winter is just going to be a really long pajama party by myself and panicking about how lonely that's going to be. So I think both is true. As an introvert, I am okay with solitude, and I think I can be with myself, and I have a lot of creative projects that I want to explore, but I also miss my friends a lot and just being in person with people and hugs and the ease of just kind of jumping on a train and going to meet someone or going to a gallery or something. So I think it'll be even more sweet when those things come back. I think that's all I have to say for now. Thank you so much for listening. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me for another interview episode. As you know, I like to begin with a little giggle, and this interview is no different. I'm really happy that my friend Erin Johnson has put me in touch with Mimi Young, who I'm talking to today. And when I first received the email with all the different things that we could talk about, and I listened to other episodes with you, I felt like, I couldn't believe that I hadn't reached out myself, and just felt really excited to talk to you. Your energy is beautiful, and I'm excited to everything, to hear more about what you're offering, what you're doing in the world, how you are moving through this year. I think that's really interesting to me as well. So I'm really grateful you're here. Thank you so much, Mimi. I'm really excited.
Thank you so much, Hero, for having me. And I can't wait to dive in.
Yes. Shall we maybe begin by you just telling us what you're doing and how would you describe your work?
So I'm a Taiwanese Canadian shamanic intuitive. My work, I would say, to a certain degree is helping people, if I were to totally sum it up, is to help people connect with the spirits around them. So that might be their ancestral spirits. It may be plant spirits, animal spirits. It may be loved ones that have passed on that are not necessarily ancestral. And just to relate with the world through the lens that all contain and are energy and all are alive.
Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you. I would love to also kind of situate ourselves in time and space a little bit, because the beauty of podcasts is, of course, that we're listening independent from location and time. So we're recording this at the very end of August 2020. I'm in Scotland, I believe. Are you in New York? I'm sorry if I got that wrong.
I'm in Vancouver.
You're in Vancouver. Yes, of course. You told me that already. I'm really sorry.
Good.
So yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about what this year has been like for you so far, and like, what was your experience of the pandemic? Do you have access to nature still? How's it all feeling for you?
May I, before I answer that question, I just want to sort of elaborate a little bit more about context of land and space. Me being in Vancouver, I am on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And I think in the context of this year, it has been even more about that. It's about really understanding who we are, where we are, our role in what is happening, and lots are happening. And yeah, I feel that this year has been that invitation to really just face, if one hasn't yet, to just totally look at all of that like a reflection in the mirror.
Yes, that's so true. Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to say more about your experience of solitude? Because I know you don't want to give too much away. I want to let you tell the story, but I know that you have so much rich experience already with really going inward and finding your own voice and accepting the limitations of being a little bit more confined, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so in terms of solitude, I feel like, for most humans, I think we tend to think that it's physical quietness away from other humans. And for me, I definitely can use that definition of solitude. But for me, in many ways, when I am in solitude with, from other humans, have just increased my sociability with spirits, with non-human spirits in particular, such as my, loving plant spirit friends, as well as animal spirit friends. And then of course we wanted to talk about, this is now in the context of human spirits, this idea of really being able to connect to my great grandmother and my grandfather in particular. These are like two specific ancestors that I have beautiful, vibrant, very much alive relationships. So even though, we may be, doing our very best to stay in our physical bubble, I feel like it's been really fantastic for me, because I've been able to continue this beautiful process of being in relationship with so much more than what we call life.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing. You're speaking to, in your work and on social media, also to how you experience the intersection of what you're describing in your own practice and the wellness community in a wider sense. And I would love to hear kind of what that's feeling like for you at the moment, and how that has shifted this year, or just generally what is important for you at the moment, and the way that you show up and the way others show up.
Thank you for asking that. I feel that this year, because so much has come to the surface, and for the first time, the collective is no longer able to deny what has been happening and what continues to happen. It's also brought up within me, in some ways, a triggering of memories from, decades ago of that really do intersect race and gender, let's say there, and to a certain degree, faith. I say this because, for instance, my mother, as a way for her to feel accepted and integrated as an immigrant in the West Coast here, she had to leave her own faith, which is one of Buddhism, and adopt a new faith, which is evangelical Christianity. And by taking on a wider faith, so to speak, she also gained all the social capital as well. And so this year, it's really been about that, about who are we? Where do we come from? And what is our role currently, right now, in the context of all these things of race and gender, and to a certain degree, classism and spirituality? And how much do we understand here in the West of Eastern-based practices that maybe are not actually showing up in the most authentic or most enriched form? A lot of it has been skewed or diluted or certainly co-opted in some fashion. And it isn't really just spirituality. It shows up as food. The amount of food that shows up completely out of context, or it's been stripped away of its original meaning, or it's, how it shows up, let's say, in association with, let's say, the lunar festivals or other seasons within the year, big celebration, and so forth. And for me, I think I just felt like it was time to share more about this. I have been sharing about this, but I think even, up to this past several months, I'm not quite sure if everyone was necessarily ready to really to walk with me through this, and to hold my hand, and for us just to talk. And so, so in many ways, it's been really emotional, and I've had to. It's interesting. I'm speaking right now with you named yarrow, but I've been really leaning into yarrow, the plant, because yarrow is a plant that really discusses about boundaries and energy consumption and energy contribution. And so I've been learning a lot from yarrow. In as I walk, it really needs to be one moment at a time, one day at a time, and I can't really look too far, because I don't know where I'm going to be in that point, and nor will I know where everyone else will be. So yes, that's definitely been the theme of this year for me.
Yes, that makes sense. I love that you're giving yourself this grace around not knowing exactly what the next step will look like, because it is such a moment to moment, breath by breath kind of journey at the moment, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should have asked this first. I'm sorry, I really feel like my brain is pretty non-linear at the moment. It's just like, woo.
I love it. I like that too.
I would love to hear, if you want to share, maybe how you first came to this work, and what did you have an experience that really was opening your eyes, where you felt like want to deepen and committing to this path, or was it a gradual process? Or I would just love to hear more about that.
I would say it's all of the above. And, for your podcast listeners, if they were to listen to my earlier recordings as a guest on other podcasts, they will probably hear that I share a specific event, which is around me being on extended bed rest for over 5 months while pregnant with my second child. But part of this 2020, it's really been interesting, is how it's really opened up my own witch wound, and me saying, actually, there's so much more to that story. And the story is that I have always been intuitive, and I've always been an animist. And, my earliest memories is playing with tree and vegetable spirits in particular. So I would speak to vegetables, and I had names for them. And this is just how it was. And I was either pre-verbal or just early, newly acquired verbal. So I was, around like 2 or 3, right? Like very young. And yeah, really it started then. And then throughout adolescence and into early adulthood, psychic smelling or clarofactance or intuitive aromatics. There's like different terms for the same thing. It's being able to smell something that is not physically there, but the scent itself is carrying a psychic message. And that was when I really was very aware that there was something magical, something that was, supernatural that was happening in my life. And I didn't necessarily know what it meant. And remember, by then my mother was attending church, and it was really frowned upon, at least at that particular church, to have these experiences. And so I did my best to, A, not talk about it, and B, I even was to a certain degree uncomfortable with it. I was like, what do I do? Like, I there's something about this. I am drawn to it, but then there's this fear around it, because part of it is if you embrace it, would that mean I'm a witch? And back then that word had a huge, it was loaded. It was just, I had this huge, connotation that I wasn't sure if I was ready to take it on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I would also love to hear more about how your relationship to the word witch maybe has changed, and like what does it feel to you now?
Yeah. So, well, maybe it'd be helpful if I shared what it was to me before and what it is now, just so you can kind of see the contrast. So, even before my mother began attending church, just for context, my father also came from a Buddhist family, but he's more of an atheist, if anything. So a lot of the spiritual impressions that were left upon me really came from my mother. And so witch, so in Mandarin, witch is wu po, and the word wu is interesting because it really connects with what we use in English, everything woo-woo. But wu, it encompasses magic. It encompasses speaking with spirits and spirit traveling and casting spells and, like syncing with the moon. Like it encompasses a lot. And of course it encompasses divination and energetic healing to a certain degree. And it's a word that to a certain degree is associated with the female. And so that was a word that, of course, just like I grew up with it, even without the context of church life. And then, even then, it was seen as a very powerful term. So one who was a witch would be very powerful, often frightening, not necessarily malicious, but just someone who you didn't really want to consult with unless you had absolutely no other option. And that was just sort of my first impression. And then when we walked into sort of, church life, there were these additional layers that she is dangerous, that she is in fact malicious, she's demonic, if anything, and that she would turn you away from the light, turn you away from anything that is good and healing and wholesome and loving. And if you were to dance with the devil, so to speak, you surely would be separated from God, right? Like, or the light, and you'd be cast into eternal suffering. So she was essentially that archetype, which was one that I really learned to fear and avoid at all costs. And yet I've always felt something deeply attractive about her, but far too terrifying to tread, into her territory. Like, it was just not something that I felt. I didn't come from an environment where it was supported, and space was held for that. And it was interesting because in sort of my process of coming into my own, of remembering who I am, it was her as an archetype that called me. And it was a descent. It was a descent to confront my own shadows, my own fears, my own demons. And it's interesting because it was the witch that liberated me and that brought healing to me. So now, how do I define her? I would say that she's someone who is deeply connected to her body, and by extension of that, deeply connected to earth, because body is earth, and earth is earth, and earth is body in many ways. And she's often someone who is perhaps misunderstood and disliked. But part of that healing process is realizing that you don't need to be liked by everyone. You don't need to pursue perfectionism. You don't need to seek external validation. And so for me, she's this beautiful agent of change, an agent of healing, and being okay that I may not be, the right person for everyone, and being totally okay with that. And also knowing that she is in many ways the archetypal mother of us all, if we would only respond to that invitation. Yeah.
Yes, there was so much in there. I was just nodding along, which people couldn't see, but I was really feeling that I needed to hear that today. So thank you so much for sharing all that. Thank you. I want to circle back to a word that you used earlier, and I want to say before I ask my question that I really have kind of no agenda around this. I'm just asking because English is my first language, and I'm always a bit curious really as to exactly what this word means to different people. So would you maybe also share what your understanding of animism is, and how, how do you relate to this word and concept at the moment?
Yeah, well, animism to me is relating to earth and realizing that humans are not central to existence. Humans are not the norm or the default. Remember, we were the very last ones that showed up on this earth. To think that we're central is a bit of a joke. But yet, we do this all the time. We will gauge the intelligence of an animal based on how many human qualities they possess. We will gauge the usefulness of a plant based on how much physical medicine it can provide a human, without understanding maybe the plant's function is actually not to provide medicine for humans. Maybe it's to provide medicine in another context, right? So it's interesting how we'll be like, well, this plant is useful because it's edible, or this animal is useful because it can, tow things. That to me reveals the wound that we have inflicted on Earth, and also how much we have stolen from ourselves. The ability to just no longer have to be central to life, and to see things with a complete surrender of ego and a need to be productive, and the need for humans to be centered. So for me, animism is a way of life where we can look at things without that lens of being human all the time. And I know that's difficult because we've been groomed. All of society has been groomed, at least in the West, to view the world through the lens of humans being centric, or humans being that top of the apex, and everything else is measured next to these measures or these metrics of human. But to be truly walking in the path of an animist is to take that off, take that hat off, or take that lens off, and say, we actually, once again, we showed up last. So we really are the students here. And we need to know how we can fit in the greater picture rather than how the greater picture fits within us. That's sort of that's where I am right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, again, I was nodding along, and that felt so good to hear. And I think there's actually something so beautiful in that kind of humble I don't know if that's a word, but I feel like taking myself in my role as a human so serious is also burdensome and overwhelming and really complicated. And it's so nice to be like, yeah, I am here as a student. I mainly want to listen and see how other creatures and beings do things and how I can be in reciprocity with them rather than to be taking all the time, which if I think we're true and honest in our hearts of hearts is just a really awful feeling, even if on the surface it might appear as the easiest thing to do. Sometimes it is actually really painful in ourselves as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Another aspect of your practice that I'm really curious about is dream work. So you're really you're excited, it seems like, about what happens in the night when we turn inward and close our eyes. And so, yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about that as well.
I find that you want to talk about productivity. Here I am saying productivity is there's limits to productivity, but it's interesting how we are so quick to reach for our tarot deck or our oracle deck, and I like those. I consult the energies from those types of decks all the time, but really we are the oracle. We are the oracle. We are the tarot. We don't necessarily need these things. They're amazing. They're helpful. But our dreams provide the channel for those oracle messages to show up. And so for me, it's just, oftentimes I'll cast a spell before sleeping, and I'll say, this is what I would really love as some guidance or some resolution. And sometimes I may not. It's not like I do this every single night. And I'll just go to bed. And more often than not, I will get answers. I'll get answers during the dreams. And it may be, maybe my grandfather that visits me in the dream. It may be a scene is shown in a dream that when I wake up, I can interpret it and make meaning of it and make a decision based on the messages that came through. It could even be receiving energetic attunement while asleep. And that's what I mean by productivity, because you're sleeping anyway. It's not adding any more time to your night or your day. But it's a highly effective way to listen, to tune into yourself, but then also to the greater reality around us. But it's powerful. It's so powerful, and it's completely tailored to you. And it's free. I just feel like I'm not quite sure why there aren't more people that embrace this. And all of us can access the wisdom from our dreams. And I know that there are people out there that say they don't dream. I would like to challenge that claim. A few different reasons. Some people define dream as a linear story or narrative. Sometimes they are, but sometimes it's just an impression. It could be a word. It could be one image, and that would be enough as a dream. Sometimes medications can interfere with dreams, or recreational drugs can interfere with some dreams. So I invite you, if possible, to just hold space for some sobriety, even if it's just for a short period of time. And there's no shame on those things. I'm just saying, it's nice to kind of enter into sleep with as much of a neutral system as possible, and just see what presents. And then the other piece is ask your body to be receptive to a dream. Sometimes we just create blocks. We'll say, "Oh, I don't dream," and then we wake up and we consciously don't remember anything. But yeah, so those are little tips I recommend to approach when approaching dream work.
Yes, thank you for that. It's beautiful, and I totally agree. Why aren't we doing this more when it's free and inside of ourselves and so beautiful? Yeah, thank you. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you're working with people, because you have a lot of different really beautiful offerings with different practices, and it would be great to hear, how you like working with people, but also maybe how that differs to how you work by yourself or with yourself at home in your own space.
Mm. Yeah, so I would say that there's three main offerings. The first offering is a skin and aura care offering where all the products are made in shamanic ritual. I'm in trance and I'm inviting the spirits of the plants as well as their physical, the physical benefits of the plants to come through for the specific client. Everything is made to order, so I don't have, a storage of everything and I just sort of take things off the shelves when orders come in. No, I just, I wait for the client to come forth, and it's done in a very just in a very intimate fashion where it isn't really production. It's more of a ritual around making it. So that's one. The two that I'm most excited about is helping people really be more directly engaging with spirits. I find that the skin and aura care is sort of a step one or a really nice additional enhancement and support. But what I really love is to help people access the spirits through readings. So they will, book online, enter in whatever question they would like, and I'll travel for them. I'll spirit travel on their behalf, meet their spirit allies, and I'll come back and I'll record everything down, and then we jump on a Zoom call where I share everything. And then, of course, whatever that may come up during the call, I may provide some additional insight. And oftentimes, like the spirits will share things like spiritual homework, like actual specific pragmatic things that the client can engage in that can help them in whatever way that is related to the question. So those are called remote shamanic readings. And the other offering that I find the most effective, and it's definitely a much broader scope, is my mystery mentorship program. And this is done online, and they can either sign up for one module or all 5 modules, but I essentially initiate them into this program where they walk with me week by week online, and we discuss everything that has to do with core shamanism, plant spirit healing, Chinese esoterics, chaos magic, and more. Just basically what I do, on the day to day. And so I essentially invite them into my home via Zoom, and I just share, and they, we have weekly assignments. Oftentimes between assignments, they'll have additional options to take on electives, which are courses from my on-demand library. And at the end of each term or each module, so to speak, they have a chance to engage in a practicum with other peers in the program where they will practice on each other, practice journeying for each other, practice reading for each other, interpreting dreams for each other, like just super fun things. So part of it is like you are growing in your intuition and you're growing in your magical and psychic abilities, but at the same time, you're growing in your capacity to trust other humans in this context of magic. And you create, and you like each apprentice, like they are creating a spiritual family within the group. And I make sure that, I keep it as accessible as possible. The tuition is sliding scale. Certain modules, just depending on who has contributed on the higher end of the sliding scale, I may have some extra reserve to provide for some partial scholarships. It's super fun. Yes, I will kick your ass sometimes, because, I'm not a love and light practitioner. I will make you ask those uncomfortable questions with yourself. But it's astounding how much change I see in the initiates. It's palpable, it's discernible, it's noticeable, and they notice it with each other. And I would say most of them are just like pinching themselves saying, I can't believe it's only been X amount of weeks and so much has already shifted. And it's them doing the work. All I'm doing is just sharing the wisdom, and then they apply it. And so for me, it's so exciting to see it in them, and to know that they're the ones that are healing. They're the ones that are changing the world. And I don't know, it just gives me so much encouragement and hope. Anyway, and yeah, lots of fun. They, a few weeks back, they were making their own ancestral foods and inviting their ancestors to show up, at their dining room table and eating together, and lots of healings taking place through that, healing sort of family lines. So we do cover a whole wide range. I feel like the breadth and the depth are both important. And it's a long mentorship program. We started in May of this year of 2020, and we will wrap up fall of 2021. But because everything is also recorded, those who want to enroll later in the program for whatever reason, they have that option to catch up. And oftentimes there's many that sort of enroll around the same time. So oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes I'm still able to assign them practicum partners through, even if they are latecomers, so to speak, into the program. And it's just such a beautiful process to see the group grow together and learn together and start shedding, the patriarchal and colonialistic mindsets that have even shaped spirituality.
Yes, that sounds really beautiful. I was again just nodding along. Yes.
I love seeing you do that and smile.
Yeah. And the last thing that you just said also leads me beautifully into my next question, which is around, you mentioned in your email that you are thinking about the ways in which some aspects of spirituality need to be dismantled. And I would just love to expand a little bit on that, and how you're seeing that and what that feels like for you right now, both kind of in out there ideas and also most practically in your body and your practice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we can talk a lot about this. I'm so excited that you asked this question. Okay, well, let's start with the basics, and we can kind of, see where we want to take this. Please interrupt me as we go along, because this is going to turn into a long monologue. So I think first of all, there's a sexism and ageism and racism problem within spirituality. If you look on Instagram, most, large spiritual accounts are white folks, are young, as in under 40 years of age. And there is oftentimes this, when I say sexist, in some of them, there's this guru culture that I know best and everyone else is you shut up and listen. That kind of idea. And on top of it, there's this intersection, because all those three things are not operating separately from each other. They're operating all together. So there's that. There's also this idea of the popularity club, right? So it reminds me of high school. I actually might write a story on this on my blog, just because I've written about so many other things. But it's this idea that the very few that have made it to the top, which is so funny. The top of what? We're talking about spiritual practices here. It shouldn't be a triangle. It should be a circle. It should be lateral movement, and the circle should be widening. But instead, it's a triangle. And everyone's trying to scramble to the top, and everyone on the bottom is feeding the top. And maybe you move up the ladder, so to speak. But it is very much a pyramid. But the popularity or the popular group, they are no different than any other industry. There's just a few. And oftentimes the content has been co-opted and exploited and appropriated in ways where it really isn't very spiritual. There's also the issue of bypassing that I see a lot, where rather than being really honest and really responsible as in being accountable for your actions, there's these terms and platitudes and attitudes around it where you can just sort of love and light everything away, right? Like a magic eraser, and everything's gone. But the fact is people are not being paid. Right? Like, I mean, this happened to me. I've worked, or I've taught out of wellness spaces, and it took maybe like 3 months of invoicing and chasing them to finally pay me for an event. And I'm just like, well, what exactly is spiritual, what you're doing? What exactly is the good work, so to speak, when you can't show up in the most practical ways, in the most basic ways? Just be accountable for your actions. But oftentimes there's this idea where maybe they talk a really good talk. Maybe they've got a really strong visual brand. Maybe they have a really amazing marketing team. But there's a significant lack of integrity in how they treat the people that are coming in as patrons or coming in as teachers or healers out of those spaces. And of course, I'm generalizing. Not all places are like this, but it does happen way more often than it should. In my opinion, if one claims to be in the wellness space or the spirituality space, there has to be zero tolerance for bullshit like that. Absolutely zero tolerance. Now, what else? Well, there's also this idea that if you've made it to the top, you are invested in ensuring that no one else comes up to the top. It may mean that there's no discussion around empowerment, which is really, I've always felt, isn't that what spirituality is? One aspect of it should be. It should be about empowering people. But in fact, people are doubting themselves more, and or they're given a really watered down version of the real thing. And so they wind up dismissing that modality as this very, I like to use low calorie version of the real thing, right? Because that's really the issue. So there's that bit, but then there's also there's no helping. There's no uplifting of someone starting out and helping them experience success. And you'll see this in, I see this a lot in the West Coast, where there's scenes, and there are all these people who are, if you're in the club, it's not too different than, let's say, any other, high school context or Hollywood sort of context, where if you're in the club, then you guard each other and give each other business, but you definitely don't expand the circle to include new people, to include people that maybe don't fit into that look or that race, that whiteness, so to speak. Let's just call it for what it is. And so for me, I've seen it, in my own work and over the years, and I'm quite well aware that even though I offer, a substantial set of offerings, a lot of people are not necessarily interested in my work because A, I'm not white, B, I'm not under 40, and C, because I feel that doing it right, doing it properly, learning these things slowly, with more intention and care, is a better way to do it than just start off really shallow and then burn out very quickly. Because I don't see it as a quick money sort of thing, whereas a lot of these folks do. And so sort of that's in a nutshell. There's certainly a lot more I can go into, but these are a lot of things that we have to consider when unpacking the current state of the wellness industry in the West.
Yes, I was again nodding along, and I resonate with everything that you said and see it too. And I'm really glad that you've named that and made the time to share your experience of what that can be like. So thank you. Before we go, I would love to hear what a typical day looks like for you, because you weave together so many beautiful practices. I can see you have such a beautiful space that you're living in, and I would just love to hear, like, what do you do when you wake up or go to sleep or make a meal?
Oh, thank you. I love that question. It makes me feel so human, right? Like, I mean, we all are. Okay, so I have two two boys and a partner. And so oftentimes the early mornings before the kids get up, we like to just start our day with our own sort of practice. For me specifically, I like starting my day with tea. So I sit with tea. It's an ancient medicine in my lineage. And I'm sitting with tea, and tea is, we're having a conversation together. Sometimes an ancestor or another spirit may sort of sit at the table with me, and you do this the way you would do with friends or family. After that, after breakfast and all that, and the kids are sort of off to whatever their day's activity, then I will typically either begin work through the context of providing readings or writing curriculum or doing other sort of operational business things. That's one of the three. And on any given day, it could be one or a combination of them. I find that depending on the season, and of course with COVID, there's had to be some adjustments with everyone being home and me having the role of being the homeschooling parent. I've just had to sort of do things a little differently. But I would say for the most part, I do things in chunks of time, and then in between, I can help meet the needs of the family at the same time. In terms of cooking, love cooking. It's, my favorite part of the home is the kitchen. It's my favorite thing in the world is a clean, organized, and full fridge. I find that when I cook, it is an invitation to invite the spirits to cook with me. So we're, it's very much of that sort of kitchen witch vibe where I'm cooking, I'm being very intentional of what foods I'm cooking with and knowing their specific energies, but then also inviting the vibrations of the spirits or even my ancestors to show up in the kitchen and we can cook together. But yeah, so I would say that maybe on the outside, it looks like my life is no different than anyone else's. Most of us do start off our day with either coffee or tea or some type of beverage. But what's happening sort of on the inside is different. Yeah.
I love that focus on what's happening in the inside, because I think that is really something that I've come to treasure so much this year. I was just saying earlier to a friend that last year I would have maybe cared a little bit more about what my rituals look like or how complex they were, how many elements I wanted to bring into them. But this year has really been about self-trust as well, about trusting that I can bring magic and presence and intention to something, even if it's super simple with whatever I have available right now. So yeah, it's been really beautiful to hear about your day and how that plays out. You've already mentioned the different things that you offer, but I would love to hear how people can connect with you and where they can find you online.
So if you're on Instagram, feel free to head to shop Ceremonie. Ceremonie is spelt with an IE at the end. You can also head to my website, which is shopceremonie.com. And then you can just head into whatever area if you're interested in, let's say, the mystery mentorship or a remote shamanic reading or the skin and aura care collection. And I have a fair amount of content in my blog and, a little write-up about who I am and how it is that I operate, all that stuff.
Great. Thank you so much. And we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Mimi, it's been really, really beautiful to talk to you. Thank you so much for everything that you shared today and for making the time to speak to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.